Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's Bindo with Robert Hollinshead. Good day to you, Bob. Good April morning. Spring is sprung.
You can't even say it's
you.
April Fool's Day to you, Sean. You can't even call it April Fool's Day. We're already past that for another year.
It's gone. It's gone. But there is a huge. Let's talk auto industry and independent dealers specifically.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Shawnee, because in the wake of what everybody calls the big event of the year, the NADA convention, and all the hype you're seeing, and all the the magazines about the world's changing to EV and all the rest of it, and you're sitting and thinking about what the future of the independent dealer, the non-franchise dealer is, right? And I think about this frequently for different reasons. But I think I come to the conclusion, and at the same one I've always come to, it's not like something new. Independent dealers are similar to the oil in a motor. In other words, an engine doesn't run without oil, right? I think we'd all agree to that, correct? Whether it's no matter what kind of engine it is, right? And a motor, if you don't have oil, it's not going anywhere. But the oil doesn't get any respect, and the oil, it's just assumed that it's there no matter what, right? But when you don't have oil, all of a sudden it turns out to be a tragedy. The engine's not operating any longer, right? And then you think about the EV thing and where that's going to lead to and all the rest of it, right? There's a few things that are absolutes. One, there's going to be a trade on an EV, right? There's no question about that. The number of cars getting traded are the cars that are somebody getting out of an old one, getting into a new one, whether it's not a trade or not, whether it's getting sold to an independent dealer prior to being traded or not, the probability that's extraordinarily high, right? And, when we look at the statistics, the undisputable facts, when we're listening to all this noise that's flying all over the place, there's a couple of things that remain chiseled in granite that aren't going to change. It's not something that could be, like modified in some way anytime soon. And this is really where I come up with this kind of goofy theory, right? Because it's not a theory. It's fact. At the end of the day, when you look at who participates in the remarketing industry, it's very rarely a new car dealer. It's almost completely a used car dealer. If you look at large auctions, you look at any these little emerging Mickey Mouse things that are out there, this thing out there, or whatever. It's not a new car dealer. A new car dealer could be listing a car, but it's almost never. It's a very low percentage of who actually buys the car. It's not an independent dealer. It doesn't matter if it's a $100,000 car or a $10 car. It's a non-franchise independent hustler, right? One way or another, hustler, right? They're doing one thing or another. And without that, the whole thing grinds to an absolute halt. In other words, when I look at tomorrow, we'll have 800 something cars at the auction, and when I look at who's logged into the auction, if there's going to be a couple thousand dealers in our lanes, and you sort it out, turns out that it's less than 10% new car dealers, less than 10%. That's 90%. Now we're selling on average. Tomorrow we'll sell on average a $42,000 car, a bunch of 90, 80, 110, but a bunch of 15, 18, 20s also. So the average price car is $42,000, but yet we're selling them almost all to a used car dealer. Almost all. There'll be some bids that aren't. But when you actually sort it down, there's only a handful there's a couple dealer groups that, consistently are there bidding on cars, not necessarily very frequently buying cars, but bidding on cars to try to buy cars. And when it's all done for the day, it's 87% of the cars are sold to an independent dealer. If we didn't exist, the auction wouldn't exist. No auction would exist. No marketplace would exist without a non-franchised dealer. They would not exist. It would no longer be there. The integral part of the marketplace is the independent dealer. So when you think about the future of that, right, the the freedom, the opportunity that being an independent dealer brings with it. Oh, it brings all sorts of tragedies as well. You got to work your ass off. You got to sign off your life. You got to have very limited, if you're going to be successful, limited personal time and all the rest of it. But when you're working for yourself, it really doesn't make a bit of difference, right? Because you're really not working for somebody else. You're working for you and your family and your employees and your future and so forth. So it's like an opportunity that's extraordinary. When I look at the names of the independent dealer that are in the marketplace, I'm going to tell you this: there's probably 40 to 50% of the people are first generation immigrants to the United States. If not first, really close to first, maybe a 1.5 generation out. The used car business has offered us less than perfect education, people with drive, and I would call it the spirit of entrepreneurial opportunity. It really is manifested in an incredible way. Not that anybody cares about any of this, Sean, but I'm just talking about taking a step back and talking about what the future is and what it would be without us. In an incredible way, it's an industry that is utterly like built to be what our country's all about. You get out of bed early, you go to bed late. In between, you bust your balls. You do anything that is necessary to create a service that creates value, at least perceived value, to enable this industry, the entire industry, to continue to operate. You stop and think about it for a second, right? If you look at the world's largest auction, not the Northeast or the Southwest or the Europe or whatever, the world's largest auction tomorrow, Friday, the Wall Street of wholesale, Manheim, Pennsylvania, right? And then look to see who the sellers are of the vehicles. It's 90% a non-franchise dealer. 90% of the cars offered at the world's largest auction. There's only a couple new car dealers that sell at an emasculatedly pathetic percentage. Obviously hunting for money that doesn't exist or don't know what the cars really are, and therefore they're looking for unrealistic money. There's only a handful of franchise dealers that sell in the world's largest auction. You could do the same thing in Dallas. There's only a handful of sellers that are not non-franchise dealers. It's really amazing. Everybody targets all of their interest and all of their energy into kissing the backside of a franchise dealer, where in reality, I've always said that give me what a new car dealer or let's call it a company, people that we actually do business with, the scumbag used car. I want that guy. Give me them all. I want them all. I want to do business with every single one of them because I like oil. I like to be able to keep moving. I like to be able to have like a frictionless way of turning inventory, right? And it's really amazing. Again, nobody cares about this. Nobody's going to listen to this or give a flying piss about it. But the fact is, without us, without non-franchise dealers, whether you want to call yourself wholesale or retail, don't really make any bit of a difference because it's all the same thing. You bought something, you're going to sell it. Just because we sell it a tenth of the time don't mean that we're not doing the exact same thing. Just because we're selling it to another dealer doesn't mean we're not actually doing $1 billion something a year in actual activity. You can't discount and act like it's not real because 100% is real. You bought it, you did the title, you paid for it. In other words, you sell it to somebody else, the same title work goes up. So in other words, you can't act like that's not part of the process. It's just not fact. It's to me, it's amazing. The amount of noise that we're listening to and the fact that no one talks about us, the oil, the actual thing that keeps everything moving. I hope everything is electric. So when the electric grid goes down, everybody can sit there watching themselves. So that's all good. But they also turn out to be used cars. And the batteries, actually our OBD, the EKG is actually going to tell people what the battery life of their vehicle is. That's why you're seeing so many used Teslas in the marketplace. As the batteries become worthless, still looks like a plastic car. and somebody still wants it, it's still good, but the battery life might not be so good. It's part of our patent, by the way, which I think eventually is going to be relatively interesting. But when you think about it, it's still going to be a used car, and it's still going to be a used car dealer that prices, picks it, and does whatever they do with it, get it ready, and find a better end user for those vehicles. I think it's the best time. When everybody's, what are we going to do about inventory? What are we going to do about it? I think it's but you're going to evolve. That's what you're going to do. You're going to adjust. In other words, a guy's throwing knuckleballs. You got to adjust. He's throwing curveballs. You got to adjust. You follow me? Stance change a little bit, choke up on the bat. In other words, you do what you got to do to actually get the job done. That's how simple it is. There's no playbook. The playbook is your common sense and your will to survive and thrive, right? And I believe that there's never been a better time to actually be in the automobile business, and not necessarily as a franchise dealer. Crazy as it sounds, I believe it to be true. Does that make any sense to you, Sean?
I would 100% agree with you, Bob. I built my career servicing and helping independent dealers, so I love them all.
So when I ask you the question, Shawnee, when I ask you, but I like the other 5%. Give me them too. You follow me? I want them all, to be perfectly honest with you. I want to do business with every single one of them, because there's always reasons why people do things that get deemed as being this, that, or the other thing. That doesn't make them bad. It just makes them, you got to adjust. You follow me? And when you adjust, it's what you got to do to survive, brother. But when you think about it, when I ask, actually, we're doing a couple of things with our software with auction groups, separate from dealer groups. When you're talking to auction groups, like large groups of auctions, you wind up with a question that even the people that run the auctions don't know the answer. How many cars do you actually sell to franchise dealers? You know what the answer is? Well, I think the majority. You know what the real answer is? A tiny, tiny fraction. Tiny fraction are sold to new car dealers. Imagine, when you look at the CarMax auctions, they're doing unbelievable, right? They sell 100%, always have sold 100%. Who are they selling their cars to? They ain't selling them to a new car dealer. If they sell a tiny single-digit fraction to a new car dealer, it's got to buy your, pay your sideline thing, whatever it is. It would be a lot. They would not exist without franchise dealers. When you look at the world's largest auction and you actually look at the statistics of who's buying them cars, it's the guy that's getting his nose ripped off with the amount of money they're paying in fees, getting their balls cut clean off with what they're paying for their money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, we get the same amount of respect as the Mexicans that are cleaning the hotel that you're staying in tonight, and then say what kind of people they are, and what these people are, this and that and the other thing. Without them, you'd be sleeping in some nasty sheets, brother. You follow me? Without them, there's all sorts of things. There's no drywall getting put up, right? So that house is going to look silly when you're sitting there looking at your metal studs. You follow me? And I think in a very similar way, it's the way that I'm going to guess 80,000 independent dealers, on this side of the border, in one way or another, participate in marketplaces that are the only thing that make the entire industry allowed to function. I don't know why we even talked about this topic, Sean, other than the fact that it bangs around in my head constantly when we see people that get disrespected, and the way entities speak about us. It's because I do get move around in circles where, if they knew what you were really thinking, they wouldn't invite you. You follow me? Because it's kind of like a lot of other things. When you're in the club, you don't. You hear things that if you're outside the club, you wouldn't hear. And to me, it's not only annoying, it's naive on their part. If anything, if I was in their industry, if I was in a vendor's business or an auctions business, I would be kissing the ass of the independent dealer personally, because the other problem is we don't have a franchise to to, let's say, join hands around, to actually have a larger, louder voice. The Independent Dealers Association, so forth, are great, but nobody participates. Why is that? Because everybody's out trying to make a living, and they might miss something if they go spend their time or effort there, and there is no, cause and effect. I go there and it's going to do me good short term. It doesn't happen, brother. You're looking to buy another one and sell another one. In the meantime, anything else that's happening becomes a moot point. There is no long-term goal of independent dealers. Therefore, we don't have a voice. Therefore, we get defecated upon and abused, actually abused with, like, I don't want to get into the whole fee thing, but in other words, abused, in my opinion. It's really unbelievable. The only people that get treated worse than us, in my opinion, and are just as important, are transporters. Transporters, without them, everything grinds to a halt. And everybody's like immediately willing and able to smash the transporter because there's a nick or a ding or a thing, because you were a silly nut that bought something and said the ding wasn't there, but now it's there. Now you want to put the blame on the transporter. You didn't get there in 4 minutes. You got to picture yourself with the wind blowing up your ass, tying down that car, that there's 2 cars underneath it, right? And it's freezing ass cold. Your knuckles are, like scun up and so forth. And you're up there trying to tie it down, not trying to get grease all over the seats and so forth. And somebody pissing and moaning when you get there. And what you wind up with is a $270 check, and they're looking to take a piece out of it, right? And you got there 14 minutes late, It's just, there's no solution to that other than the fact that I think it would be, and nobody's ever going to do this because nobody's ever going to listen to this little thing that we do. But I think it's a good idea to just take a step backwards sometimes to put it in perspective of A, oil in the motor, B, the people that help all of us actually turn to earn, right? If you ain't got them, you can't sell them. If you bought them and can't move them, you're timing out before you even see that sucker. You know what I'm saying to you, Shawnee? I think that's it for today, brother. I'm sure we're going in circles and eyeballs are spinning. This nuts talking nonsense again, but I like the idea of people maybe taking 30 seconds in the drive time, windshield time, whatever, to think about it a little bit. Not that we got to close to action. You got it, brother. Have fun, everybody. Ciao.